All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're unpacking a really powerful novel called Wild Thorns. It's a story that grapples with one of the toughest questions you can imagine when facing oppression. And that one question, right there, it's the engine of this entire story. Is real resistance loud and violent, or could it be something quieter? Something you find just in the act of surviving day to day? Let's see how the novel explores this. So, our story kicks off with the homecoming, but trust me, this is not the happy reunion you might be picturing. So, let's meet our main guy, Usama. He's coming back home after working abroad, and he is fired up. He's young, he's an idealist, and he is absolutely convinced that the only way forward is through direct, forceful action. He's expecting to find a whole community just waiting for a spark to start a rebellion. But what he actually finds? Man, it's a total shock to his system. He doesn't see a rebellion brewing. He sees a complicated, exhausting reality where people are just trying to survive. They're navigating checkpoints, dealing with constant surveillance. And the biggest shock of all? Many of them are taking jobs inside Israel, working for the very people he considers the enemy, just to make ends meet. And that clash, between what he expected and what's really happening, that sets up the entire conflict of the novel, and it's perfectly captured in the story of two cousins. So on one side, you've got Usama. For him, it's black and white. Working for them is betrayal, period. But then you have his cousin, Adil, who represents a totally different view. He's got a family, he's got bills to pay, and for him, it's not a political statement. It's just a painful necessity. Their whole conflict is boiled down to those two simple, powerful lines. And Adil's point of view, that's really the dilemma for the whole community, isn't it? It's not about giving up. It's about what you do when there are no good options left. It's about your responsibility to your family when ideology doesn't put food on the table. So this is the question the novel just keeps pushing on us, is just continuing on, raising your family, holding things together under all that pressure. Is that weakness? Or is that its own incredible form of resistance? Is resilience just as powerful as rebellion? Well, for Usama, the answer is a hard no. He just can't stomach this compromise. And that frustration, it pushes him to come up with a very dangerous plan. You see, in his mind, every worker crossing the border is another step towards accepting the occupation. He thinks that system has to be shattered. And if no one else will do it, he will. He's decided that any action is better than just sitting back and watching it happen. And if you look at it from his point of view, the plan seems almost logical. Step 1, target the buses. Step 2, sabotage them. The goal? Stop the workers, which he thinks will collapse the whole system of cooperation he despises. It's a direct assault on compromise itself. But here's the thing. There is one massive, gut-wrenching truth that he has completely, utterly overlooked in his anger. The people on those buses, they aren't the enemy. They're his neighbors, his friends. They're people just trying to feed their families, people just like his cousin Adil. He's so focused on the big picture, on fighting this system, that he's forgotten about the actual human beings trapped inside it. And that one blind spot, well, it sets his ideals on a collision course with a really, really brutal reality. So the attack happens. And what's the result? A total disaster. His grand act of resistance doesn't weaken the occupation one bit. It doesn't spark any kind of uprising. All it does is hurt the very people he claimed he was fighting for and create even more fear and chaos in his own community. It boils down to this brutal equation. All he did was add more suffering. Plain and simple. Not an ounce of positive change came from it. His resistance turned out to be just another form of destruction. And this is where it all comes crashing down for Usama. It's that devastating moment of clarity where he has to face the fact that his heroic act might have just made him the villain of the story, that his certainty was actually just dangerous. So where does all this tragedy lead? Well, it builds to the novel's powerful and, I have to say, deliberately unresolved conclusion. Look, if you're hoping for a neat little bow on this story, you're not going to get it. The book doesn't pick a side. It doesn't tell you whether Usama or Adil was right. What it does is leave you sitting with the impossible weight of their situation. So it throws all these tough questions right back at you. We're back to where we started. What does resistance really look like? And who ends up paying the price for these grand gestures? Is it the oppressor, or is it so often the most vulnerable people on your own side? And maybe this is the biggest question of all. Could it be that this simple, stubborn act of refusing to disappear, of just getting up every day, raising your kids, and living, is the most profound act of resistance there is? Because in the end, Wild Thorns isn't about giving us easy answers. It's about showing us a difficult truth. That in these kinds of struggles, the lines between what's right and wrong, between being a hero and a villain, between resistance and survival, they aren't just blurry. They're tragically, painfully, all tangled up together.